The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Gird your loins and lighten your lamps, and be like servants who await their master's return from a wedding, ready to open immediately when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. Amen, I say to you, he will gird himself, have them recline at table, and proceed to wait on them. And should he come in the second or third watch, and find them prepared in this way, blessed are those servants." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to God.
In order to properly understand this Gospel passage, we need to hear a few more verses in order to understand what the Lord is, the complete thought here. So we hear this at the end, and as you come to the second or third watch and find it prepared in this way, blessed are those servants. Now, the next verse says, "You know as well as I that if the head of the house knew when the thief was coming, he would not let him break into his house. Be on guard, therefore, the Son of Man will come when you least expect him." So the point here that the Lord is trying to make is that we are to keep ourselves ready for that moment when he will come for each of us. Whether that's at the end of the world, which might happen 5 minutes from now or 5 million years from now, or when the world ends for us, the Lord will come for each of us at the moment of our death. And so he tells us very clearly that we should be prepared for that moment. The question is, how do we prepare ourselves for that moment? And the answer is actually very simple. The primary and ordinary way that we stay in communion with God is by means of the grace that comes to us from the sacraments. I was just doing a funeral mass yesterday afternoon of a very faithful Catholic man who died up in Shelton, a man I knew for 13 years. And in my homily, I talked about the fact that he had stayed in communion with God. He worked very hard to stay in communion with God. And it's noteworthy that oftentimes when someone we know well, even if not a family member or whatever, would die, there's a certain sadness always. And I have to say that for the first time in my life, I experienced no sadness with this man's death. I was so certain that he died in communion with God because I've been taking care of him for 13 years, visiting him when he was sick, talking to him, etc., etc. I don't know that he's in heaven, of course, but I know that he was in communion with God when he died. Now, in complete thought, let's say that we sometimes think today that communion with God, which is the definition of heaven in the Catechism, begins when we die. In other words, some people think, when I die, then I go to heaven. This is not Christian teaching, this is not Catholic teaching. From a Catholic perspective, as the prayers of the funeral mass make clear, death is nothing more than a doorway through which we pass from life with Christ or communion with God in this world to communion with God in the next world. In other words, if we die in communion with God, we will be in communion with God eternally. Perhaps a time in purgatory for purification. However, if we die out of a state of communion with God, then death is nothing more than the doorway through which we pass from being out of communion with God in this world to being out of communion with God in the next. Death doesn't change anything. Grace changes everything. So, the point of the passage of the Lord's parable here is very clear. We want to keep ourselves always prepared, always in a state of grace, so that when that moment comes, it'll be a simple passage from communion with God here to communion with God